Shalom, this is Sheldon Wilson coming from Beth Immanuel in Hudson, Wisconsin. And today we're going to be continuing our Torah study, and we're going to be studying sorry, a little bit of a tongue twister here, Beha'alotcha. This portion is called in English "When You Set Up." Sorry, we didn't have any studies last week. We had some technical difficulties, but there's always next year, so no problem. So I've also we do have this open for other people to come in and be a part of the conversation. So we do actually have a virtual congregant with us here today, and we'll see if any other viewers end up showing up. This is Andrew Heichert from Santa Maria, California. Go ahead and say hi if you'd like.
Hello, everybody in Cyberland.
So what I thought we'd do today is maybe get a little bit more structured with this and cover just one topic and see if we can what we can get out of that, and just rather than kind of skimming over and doing a ton of different topics. So what I wanted to talk about today is the mitzvah of the second Passover. So we read about this in Numbers chapter 9. Andrew, would you like to read a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm starting in Numbers 9 in verse 11. And it says, "In the second month, on the 14th day at twilight, they shall keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any of its bones. According to all the statute for the Passover, they shall keep it. But if anyone who is clean and is not on a journey fails to keep the Passover, that person shall be cut off from his people because he did not bring the Lord's offering at its appointed time. That man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger sojourns among you and would keep the Passover to the Lord according to the statute of the Passover and according to its rule, so shall he do. You shall have one statute both for the sojourner and for the native."
All right, so this is the mitzvah of the second Passover. What in the world? Why are we doing a second Passover? It really seems like why would that be necessary? And in fact, if you read some early church writings, they actually mocked the Jewish believers in Yeshua, who these were. Most likely, I believe, the group that were known as the Ebionites. They would call them the poor ones, and these were Torah observant Jews who they were religious Jews who believed that Yeshua was the Messiah, and they would keep second Passover. So the early Christians, I think this is maybe 3rd century or something. There's already been some bad blood here between the mainstream church now, which is predominantly Gentile, and the Jewish believers in Yeshua, and there's some strife going on, and they actually mock the Ebionites for keeping Passover twice. They act like they don't even know believing. I got to stop saying believing Jews, because there's a lot of believing Jews that aren't necessarily believers in Yeshua, but they believe in God. So let's try to use better terminology. They mock the disciples, Jewish disciples of Yeshua, for not even knowing when Passover should be. Well, what's actually going on here is this is actually a command. So if we back up and we read in Numbers 9 And let's see, verse 6. Andrew, can you read 6 through 10?
It says, "And there were certain men who were unclean through touching a dead body, so that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and Aaron on that day. And those men said to him, 'We are unclean through touching a dead body. Why are we kept from bringing the Lord's offering at its appointed time among the people of Israel?' And Moses said to them, 'Wait, that I may hear what the Lord will command concerning you.' The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, 'Speak to the people of Israel, saying, If any one of you or of your descendants is unclean through touching a dead body, or is on a long journey, he shall keep the Passover to the Lord. In the 2nd month on the 14th day at twilight they shall keep it. They shall eat it with the unleavened bread and bitter herbs.'"
All right. So that's good. So here's the reason why we're doing this. We have these group of men who've somehow come into contact with a dead body, and so Passover comes around. Moses says, "Hey, we got to do Passover again, even though we're here in the wilderness." So these guys, they've been around a dead body, and they feel left out, and so they're not going to be able to participate in the Passover lamb, the sacrifice of the Passover lamb. So for Passover, there's a lot of mitzvot, and not just for Passover bread. So just some of them, just off the top of my head. So you have the mitzvah to do the Passover sacrifice, the Pesach. So then you've got to eat it with bitter herbs and matzah, unleavened bread. Then you've got to have cleared out all of the chametz, all of the for lack of a better word right now, all the leaven out of your homes, and so you don't even see it. So this goes for a week, and generally during your Seder, there's a whole lot of other mitzvot that have to be fulfilled, and so we have the Haggadah, which is a story that leads us through making sure we are able to make sure that we've fulfilled all of those mitzvot. It could be easy to forget something when you're drinking 4 glasses of wine. So we make sure to read through the Haggadah, and keeps us on track, make sure we do all those mitzvot. So right now, we're able to do all of those things, except what, Andrew? What are we not able to do?
We are unable to sacrifice the Pesach lamb in the temple.
This is true. So we don't have a temple. We don't have a sanctified priesthood right now in order to sacrifice the Pesach lamb. And that would be something that all Jewish men would be required to do. As we read, in the first month on the 14th day, you shall offer the Pesach in its appointed time. So, as far as a Gentile, actually is not allowed, not permitted by the Torah to partake of a Pesach offering. However, they would be able to have a Seder. They would be able to, do all of the other things that are done during Passover. If they did want to participate in the Pesach lamb, the Torah says that they must first be circumcised, which is essentially its conversion. So here we've got this this mitzvah here for Second Passover, and it's interesting that we don't see all of the mitzvahs having to be redone. Only things that the Torah here says, that Andrew just read, was that you have to offer the Pesach, you have to eat bitter herbs and matzah, and essentially you would probably do like a whole nother Seder. You probably have your 4 glasses of wine and everything again, but you don't have to clear out all of the chametz, all of the leaven out of your house. You don't have to keep another 7 days of unleavened bread, because you would have already done all that. Those were mitzvahs, and you had to do those in their appointed time, even though you weren't able to have the Pesach offering. So let's just back up a little bit and talk about who the men were. These men, let's see if I've got, see if I can find out what Rashi here has to say. If he mentions it, apologize. This is just something that I just thought of looking into here. Okay. Well, sorry, should have looked that one up ahead of time. I don't want to have to spend too much time looking for it. The Jewish tradition is that these men were actually unclean because they were tending to a specific body. Andrew, do you know whose body that was?
That wouldn't be Yeshua's body, would it?
No. Nope, not in this case. Yeshua was a little bit later, but in the case of the Torah.
Oh, okay. No.
It doesn't say in the Torah itself, but it makes sense in it, and it's certainly true. So remember, Joseph, when he died in Egypt, he charged. He made sure that there was a vow that his body would be taken out from Egypt and buried in the Holy Land.
I see where you're going.
Yeah. So because he was being transported at this time, those who were transporting Joseph were unable to keep the Pesach. And so, according to Jewish tradition, these men that were complaining to Moshe were these men that were carrying the bones of Joseph, or I guess he was embalmed. It might have been more like a mummy. So they were tending to his body, carrying his body, and therefore they were not able to keep the Pesach.
They fell under the stipulation of contact with a dead body, incurring the ritual contamination, right?
Yep. Yeah, and also there's an additional kind of grace that Moses puts in here, is that if you're on a long journey, he says you're on a distant road, I believe the Torah says. If you're on a long journey, then you're able to keep the second Passover. Now, Andrew, what do you think? Could you go ahead and, let's say you didn't want to keep the first Passover, and you decided you wanted to push it off because you had something you'd rather be doing on the first Passover. So do you think you could do that?
Don't think that applies.
Yeah. The Torah actually says that it's a sin if you could have brought the Pesach in its appointed time and you didn't. So yeah. All right. So nowadays we really don't have a reason why we would have to keep the second Passover. Dead bodies, contamination by dead bodies, it really doesn't matter. We don't have a temple in order to bring a Pesach offering. So since that can't be done, you can touch a dead body and go ahead and immerse yourself, whatever you feel like you need to do, and then go ahead and do your Seder. There's no consequence there, but we do. Some people do. I do. We have a little remembrance of Pesach Sheni. Just have a little bit of matzah. And just remember the fact that there was this moed, this appointed time, does exist, and just acknowledge that it's there. No special kiddush or anything is required, to my knowledge, and it's just a fun time to get together and just have a good discussion. Perhaps there might be some stories to talk about. So one story that is pertinent that we like to read here at Beth Immanuel on Pesach Sheni is the story of Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus. And you can find that in the book of John in verse 19. And let's see why Pesach Sheni is hinted at here in the Gospels. Andrew, are you able to read that?
Yep. It's actually in John 19, chapter 19, verse 38, I believe.
And what are you reading out of? The Delitzsch Hebrew Gospels. Cool.
Okay. So it says, after this, Joseph Haramati, Joseph of Arimathea, came. He was a disciple of Yeshua secretly on account of the Yehudim, and he requested for Pilatos to permit him to take the body of Yeshua. Pilatos allowed him. So he came and took the body of Yeshua. Noctimon also came, Nicodemus, who earlier had come to Yeshua at night, and he brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100 litrin, about 75 pounds. They took the body of Yeshua and wrapped it in burial garments with the spices, according to the custom of the Yehudim for burying the dead. In the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden was a new tomb in which no dead person had been placed until then. They placed Yeshua there because it was Erev Shabbat for the Yehudim, and the tomb was nearby. Sorry about the spoiler earlier.
No, that's totally fine. So here we have two extremely wealthy men, Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea, and I know that certainly Nicodemus, and I'm not positive about Joseph of Arimathea, but Nicodemus or Noctimon is mentioned in the Talmud, and he's mentioned as he was a tzaddik. He was a righteous man, and extremely wealthy. Yeshua says it's very difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, it's not impossible. Nicodemus apparently he was up to the task. So here I'll go ahead and read a little bit out of Torah Club. This is Torah Club Volume 5, and see what it says here about what we just read. Messianic believers sometimes host a special event on the Seder night of Second Passover to remember the story of Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea, the apostles who removed the Master's body from the cross and prepared him for burial. By caring for the body of the Master, both men rendered themselves Levitically unclean. As a result, neither of them could eat the Passover that evening. Both Joseph and Nicodemus were wealthy men of prestige and influence. They both could have sent servants to take care of the burial of Yeshua, so as not to forfeit their own Passover Seders that evening. Instead, they showed their love and devotion by attending to his body personally. So, therefore, 1 month later, somewhere in Jerusalem, on the 15th day in the second month, Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus probably sat down together to make their Seders. Perhaps they reclined at the table next to each other, lifting cups in remembrance to the one who is resurrected. So, pretty cool story for disciples of Yeshua to realize how the Pesach Sheni, the second Passover, is kind of hidden between the lines of the book of John. Andrew, did you have any other topics that you'd like to discuss on this? Any questions?
No, but it does kind of shed a little bit of light. I know a lot of people might even see this when they learn about the contamination of a dead body, when they think about the Good Samaritan. A lot of people cast judgment and instant, condemnation on all the guys that walked by the beat up man, but he probably appeared to be dead to them. Of course, a good disciple of Yeshua would know better to set aside the risk of becoming contaminated, but you can see the thought process of some people trying to desperately stay ritually clean by avoiding the beaten up man on the side of the road.
Yeah. So we then have to realize, what do we prioritize? Do we prioritize ritual? Do we prioritize, being clean,
right,
over helping our fellow man? So, and even the Jewish tradition, Jewish ethics holds caring for the dead in extremely high regard. One of the reasons, Yeshua actually says, when you invite someone to your dinner, let's say it's Shabbat, you're going to invite somebody over. Go and invite the rich person he can pay you back, or he can invite you back over to his own home. Wonderful for you, good job, but you have your reward. But if you go out into the streets, you find the poor man, and you invite him to sit at your table, he can't pay you back. So therefore, your deeds are seen and written down in a book, and Hashem will actually reward you at the coming of the Mashiach, at the coming of the Messiah. So just like the poor man, the dead, they can't repay you for dressing them, for as the disciples did, covering his body with spices and laying him in a tomb that was actually for I believe for Nicodemus, and that tomb was for a rich man. And here Yeshua, who was not wealthy, was laid within this tomb, and had he not had he not resurrected, God forbid, they would have continued to dress him and go through all the other prescribed rituals that Jewish tradition says should be done for the dead. And the dead can't repay you. But I think those who did care for the body of Yeshua, they will receive a reward, even though he has come back to life and is able to give them a reward. So may he come soon and in our days.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, I think we've pretty well covered everything here on the second Passover. Again, we're not going to be able to get too in depth, but I had a lot of fun. So thanks a lot, Andrew, for joining me. Maybe we can do it again.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a good night. Shalom.
Shalom.